Hello YouTube, and welcome to another episode of CGL's New Jersey Collectibles. So this week we don't have a flea market video. We don't have we haven't bought a whole ton of stuff on eBay, although we are stockpiling some stuff to show in a later video next week. But for this week, I had a special thing planned. I wanted to do a 500 subscriber Q&A question. And honestly, by the time this video gets out, it's going to be the 600 subscriber Q&A question. So, a big thank you to everybody that's been subscribing to the channel. We've seen a lot of growth just every week. It just seems like the number just keeps going up every day. New people commenting, saying they like what we're doing. So we're going to keep doing it. So one thing that I wanted to do for the channel, one thing that was advised for me to do, was to get my dad on here more often. So this is my dad. Anything you want to say to introduce your...
Hi YouTube. Thank you for subscribing, and it's great that we share this common interest. We have a lot of fun with it, and we're glad you're having a lot of fun with it too. So we're very excited and looking forward to answering your questions.
Yeah, so, a big thing that has been told to me often by multiple people, everywhere we go, no matter who we see, different age ranges, everybody says it's always unique that you're doing this with your dad. I never thought anything of it because I've been doing this kind of my whole life. I started collecting at around 9 years old. My dad was collecting prior to then. And everything that we've done, we've always just done it together. So it is weird for me to hear people say that that's different, that's unique, that's odd, because I guess most people don't have that commonality.
I was very lucky because I did flea markets and stuff with my dad. So it just seemed natural to me to keep doing it. And then as Chris got older, he just tagged along and took an interest. So just kind of worked out that way.
All right. So let's get into the questions. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but we're going to try to answer them as best we can. We're not going to try to cut anyone short. I've been taking questions throughout the last couple videos. You guys have been asking them. I've been kind of writing them down. I kind of reworded some of them to just fit the video better, but we're going to try to answer them. So I'm going to let you start first with question number 1. How did you get into collecting, and what are you most passionate about in the collecting sphere?
That's a great question. I got interested in collecting because I read comic books as a kid when I was young, and of course watched a lot of cartoons on television, so I knew the characters. And of course you do the whole, growing up, high school, college thing. You start working, and one day, probably in my 20s, I was happening through a bookstore. They were selling old vintage comics, and I started thumbing through them, and I said, wow, some of these are really cool, and I know the characters. And I bought a couple, and that started the passion.
What were some of those first comics? I know one of them in particular was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. It was X-Men. I was really interested in. I loved the stories as a kid, and I think one of the earliest comics I bought that I really sought out was X-Men 13, the introduction of the character, the Juggernaut. Because I think I had seen him on television as a kid in the cartoon. So that was the start, and sort of came in and out of it when I had the opportunities.
Now, you said that you were, because I know the story, but for everybody who's watching for the first time, you said that you were reading comics as a kid, but what happened to all those comics?
So what happens typically when you're a kid and you have lots of cool stuff, but then you kind of outgrow it. And your parents get tired of looking at it, and so they scoop it all up one day and just throw it out on you. And you really don't miss it. You say, oh, well, that phase is over. But then as you get older, and I think that had kind of an effect on me, you miss that stuff. You say, boy, I really had fun with it. And that's what kind of draws you back. So, yeah, a lot of great comics got thrown out.
And then just to answer the second part, your passion lies in comic books. What in particular, and anything else besides? I know comics is A tier, but what's B or C tier for you?
Well, I was a big pop culture fan. Growing up in the 70s, of course, there was a big overlay of all the stuff from the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, the Batman TV show and the Adventures of Superman, Three Stooges. And growing up in that era, pop culture was huge, sci-fi, Star Trek, and so been a geek into all of those things, and anytime I see something from that era, it piques my interest.
Awesome. All right, so I guess for me, I say that I started collecting when I was 9 years old, although it was probably earlier than that because anytime that I got toys or something, I wasn't the kind of kid to break them and smash them and play in the dirt with them. I always kept them kind of neat and organized, and it's just something that I like to do. I like organization, even though not too organized now at the moment. It kind of drives me crazy every time I see it, but the first time I can say definitely started collecting was fourth or fifth grade of elementary school. My art teacher, Mr. Behrens, had a line of Pez dispensers on top of his art display in our art class, and there was something about them. Like all the other kids would walk into class and just do their thing. I was staring at those Pez dispensers every single day that I was in there, and I don't know why. But I noticed that he had two Yoda Star Wars Pez dispensers. So I was looking around my junk drawers as a kid, and I found that I had a Bart Simpson Pez holder. It's not exactly a dispenser, but a Pez holder. And one day I went up to him and I asked him, "Hey, Mr. Behrens, would you trade me this Bart Pez holder for your Yoda? Because I noticed you have two of them." And the guy was nice enough to just say yes, like, and that just started it. That was my first negotiation.
That's fun.
And it just, it's weird. And then as I got old, so I started Pez dispensers, got into action figures, then started getting into anything cool, anything that just started catching my interest. Now most recently into comics. People think I'm a comic book guy. I've only been doing this for about 3 or 4 months. The comic book sphere. I mean, I'm a new beginner with an educated background.
An educated background,
but
you've been
I've never done
interested
it.
in the characters.
I've never, yeah,
for a long time.
A lot of this stuff is new. Guys say that we pass through books all the time, especially me because I have the camera. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of comics. I know what I'm looking for. I know the big stuff. I know the stuff that excites me. I always say I'm just looking for the good stuff. And then my interest lies primarily in Marvel comic books and Marvel characters and Universal monsters. I have a lot of Universal Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein stuff. Godzilla was a huge thing that I grew up on. Dad had VHS all around the house that was Godzilla themed. I would watch them like crazy as a kid. I talked to my friends and they did not have the same childhood experience that I have. I was watching Herculoids, Thundar, the 90s Spider-Man, the 60s Spider-Man, Godzilla. People weren't watching stuff like that. So I don't know if I got into collecting and all this stuff because I was raised on it or because it was inherited. But it's
probably a little of both. The kids today, sometimes I feel that they're missing out because they're not as exposed. When I was young, we had something called syndication. All the old TV shows and movies would be played constantly on the television, and there was exposure. Some kids would gravitate to one area or another, and today it's different. A lot of the older stuff isn't out there, but the newer stuff is great. Very lucky that the movies came along, and Godzilla's back. All the great ones just keep coming back. So,
even though I wasn't a fan of the last Godzilla movie, the one prior to that with what was it, King of All Monsters or something?
Right.
The second Godzilla movie was really good.
That was great.
And what Disney's done with Marvel it's brought it back to new heights.
Right, back to the heights.
So let's get into question number 2. We got a bit of a more personal question that somebody asked. I was surprised that they asked it, but I'm glad they did. Like I always say, please ask questions because I love to answer them. But somebody asked, what do you do or what do we do full time? How long have we been reselling collectibles? And do we ever plan on reselling full time?
You want to start?
I'll start first. So I've always worked like part-time jobs. I worked with a real estate management company. I worked with a pizzeria. I worked as a Christmas tree salesman. But most recently, what I do full-time now is I work at a retail store, golf store. Great job. Guys are flexible with me. I have great hours. They allow me to do what I want to do. As far as reselling, I've been reselling since I was a little kid. I want to say not when I first started collecting, but a couple years later. So I want to say around 13, 14, I started getting interested in the financial side of what it was I was doing. My dad always taught me, buy low, sell high. which is a very simple concept but very difficult to do. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Requires an education. It requires some experience. We'll get more into that in another question that somebody asked. But so I've been reselling primarily on eBay. I found that that's the best source as far as security, safety, and even though there's a lot of problems with it, because eBay customer service, in my opinion, and the opinion probably of millions of others, is that it's horrible.
And you were selling on Instagram before I even really understood what Instagram was,
right,
which is pretty cool.
So I used to sell on Instagram a lot. You guys can go check out my Instagram page. I'm not on there as much, although I will still post stuff from time to time, but I'm not selling on there anymore. And I never had a bad experience personally, so I can't attest to this, but I have heard of tons and tons and tons of bad experiences selling through Instagram because there is no security.
Right.
There's nobody monitoring what's going on. There's nobody looking for scammers or anything like that. It's you're really trusting the other person. So I've done multiple transactions on Instagram that went smoothly, no problems. I did have one occasion where a guy sent me something that was not as described. It was a broken package and it didn't look like that. And
a lot of scams out there. You have to be careful.
But I've heard horror stories where guys have sent hundreds of dollars for stuff that never came, or they sent out stuff for money that got taken away or something, and it's gone. There's nothing you can do about that. So as much as I hear that Facebook Marketplace is actually good, I got to look more into that. I don't know too much about it, but eBay for me just is the safety net. It's the security behind it.
Right.
They got to improve on their customer service, though.
Ideally, you have something of value, and the more people you get to look at it, eventually you're going to find the best buyer. And that's really what you're looking for when you're selling is, where can I find the right buyer, the best buyer? So if you limit yourself to a small audience, you may miss where that great buyer is.
Right, and that's something that I didn't even mention, which is selling in person. I mean, we've done that a bunch of times. Whether it's setting up at the flea market, advertising for a garage sale, or taking my stuff to a dealer and saying, "Hey, you know what can we trade? Can we flip? Can we do something for it?" I've done a little bit of everything.
Yep. It's difficult, and it can be done.
But like you said, the audience that eBay captures is what gravitates. It's social media in general.
Right.
It just, and then the last part of the question: do I ever consider reselling full time? Honestly, I don't know, because that's kind of a tricky question. I would like to get to the point in my life where I can resell full time and not have to worry about it, because that's the biggest deal with selling full time is you're putting all your money on the line, and your income is what you can generate. And if you tell me that it's solely that, that's kind of scary. I don't know. I would like to get to a point where I could retire, live comfortably, and then do collectibles galore, do shows, travel, do everything and anything. But I don't know if I'm at that point yet. But I'd like to get to that point someday. So you want to start from the beginning?
Right. I work at a manufacturing company. It's an engineering company. It's technical, and I enjoy that. And I find that it makes a great hobby for me in my spare time. I get to spend a little time doing something that I enjoy. I love working with the comic books. I love working with the collectibles, finding them, going through them. I still will read a good comic when it comes in. And, I enjoy reselling. So I do it also as a hobby, but / business. I'm trying to, make sure that I'm not going to go broke doing this, and if I can generate a profit.
And how long have you been doing this reselling thing, roughly?
I've been more into the reselling for about 13 or 14 years as eBay. Originally started buying on eBay, and then I realized, I had a lot of stuff. And I said, I could do this, I could sell too. And it's very important to have good credibility on eBay. So I've tried to maintain a good standing as a seller, and that allows me a good rating to, be trusted by a lot of people. So it's fun, and it's also work.
And any point ever consider doing this full time, or is it just the hobby that makes it fun?
For me, it's the hobby. Because I do a lot of different things. I probably crossed my mind one day that I was going to open, let's say, a retail store. But again, if you open up a retail store, even in a mall, you have to have the right person come into your store to buy the right item at the right price. And you're going to have a small audience. You're going to have big overhead with that store. So
That's the thing.
when I did the numbers, it was really difficult to think about having like a physical location. So the way I do it, but probably like you, if I could ever retire with enough money to be comfortable, I probably would do more.
Mm-hmm. And so we're not discouraging people from reselling full time, because people do it. You see guys. You got the TV shows, but for every guy that's on TV, there's 100 guys that are also doing it full time.
That's right.
People do that all the time. You just have to be dedicated. I don't consider myself personally dedicated enough to do it full time.
Well, we know a lot of
fun.
Those people.
We keep saying the word
them.
fun.
Right.
It's fun for us, and to do it in our spare time, doing this in my spare time. I don't want to lose the fun and make it all strictly business. That wouldn't be fun.
Right. We know some dealers who do cleanouts and storage units and hunt down collections. They buy large volumes. They tie up a lot of money. They have to transport all that stuff, and then they have to turn it over quickly at a profit. And they're dedicated to it like a business full time. The thoughts crossed my mind to go back to. I did storage units for a little while. Sounds like fun.
And this isn't actually one of the questions. It's just something that's popping into my mind now. Because I had some people give me a lot of grief in the last video that I passed up on some amazing comic books that they would have bought, and I tried to stress it enough. The guy was not selling it at the right price.
That's a very important point.
What is the difference to people watching this channel that might not even grasp the concept? What is the difference between reselling, being a dealer, versus being a collector? Because if I was a collector, I would have went galore at this guy's stand, but I can't do that.
That's a big difference. And I would say I play both sides of that fence. As a collector, a person who's a collector is passionate about what they want. They know what they want, and they're willing to pay what would be considered the full retail price for that item to have it. They have money in the bank, but they really don't want the money in the bank. They want to use that money to get the items that they want. As a dealer, you want to bring those items to the customers. In order for you to do that and generate a profit, you can't pay retail. You have to be able to buy at some discount to retail and still be able to sell it to someone at a reasonable price and leave a little bit of profit to cover your expenses and to make your time worthwhile. So there's a big difference buying as a dealer and buying as a retail customer for your collection.
I think I don't know the ins and outs of comic books like I stated before. I was looking through that guy's stand. You guys could check it out actually in the previous video. I went to the Stormville Flea Market, which is a really awesome high-end big ticket item flea market, and there was a guy that was selling some outstanding stuff, but he had everything marked individually priced. He knew what he was selling, and I was going through it. I did not see a deal. I saw $5 comics with $10 stickers on it.
Right.
And I also had a back and forth with the guy selling vintage toys. He wanted to sell them for $20 a piece. I contacted you through the phone because I had no internet service, and you said that they would sell for maybe $30 a piece. Well, why not buy it? Buy it for 20, sell it for 30. There's shipping costs, there's fees, there's after taxes, there's all this stuff that goes into buying it. It wouldn't have been worth it to buy it.
Right.
If I was a collector, $20 is a discounted price. I'm getting a couple bucks off. But as a reseller, I might be breaking even at best. I can't do that.
So this is a very important point that Chris is hitting on. As a dealer, so there are people out there who are the opposite of collectors. They have stuff that they really don't want. They would like to get rid of it. It holds no emotional value to them. They may have inherited it. They may have found it. It's in their basement. It's in their way, and they want to clean up. And what they would really like is to have money for that stuff. And that creates the opportunity, what the term that's usually thrown around is a motivated seller. They're happy to get rid of the stuff, even at a discounted price, because they don't want it. And so ideally, as a dealer, you're thinking, I have to pay 50% of the retail value, and that's going to help me cover all my expenses, all my costs, the time and the work I'm going to put in, and then hopefully leave a little bit of margin so I don't go broke getting collectors the items that they want. 50 cents on the dollar sounds like a low number, but from a motivated seller, it's a godsend if you show up with a pile of cash and say, I'm going to take everything. Generally, as a dealer, you're buying in bulk. You're not buying individual items. So you buy in bulk. You're doing that person a favor, getting that stuff out of their hands. They don't want it, and putting in their hands what they do want, which is cash. Then I'm going to find a collector, and he's going to do the opposite. He's going to want certain comic books, and he doesn't really want the cash in his bank. He wants those great comic books. And that's where the business end comes in.
And even though we do it often, we try not to buy from collectors. It's tough because collectors have the good stuff.
We bought that big collection from Dolph in the parking lot.
Right.
But again, because he had spent a lot of money at Comic-Con, he wanted to make a deal to get rid of bulk.
Right.
So we took bulk, and he gave us a fair deal.
Fair deal.
So that's how it works.
All right. Well, we kind of answered some of it, so we don't have to go too far into this. But question 3 was, how do you recommend buying comic books / collectibles, and how do we go out and find them? Because somebody was asking, I guess they don't have a local flea market. Maybe they're not exposed to eBay. I would suggest eBay for anybody because
Right.
it's online, it's universal, it's easily, you can find anything you want. But so take eBay and social media out of it. How do we go about finding collectibles in person?
Well, the yard sale is a great way, or the local flea market. Sometimes Chris and I will go out and stop at 10 or 12 flea markets, yard sales, I'm sorry, in the morning. And a lot of times we come home empty-handed. They just don't have the kind of items that we're looking for.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm ranting and raving about yard sales. I might move to being on the anti-yard sale list.
Yeah,
I have wasted too
big
much
investment of
time with yard sales, too much gas. You're driving all over the place, and gas prices are what they are now. I've seen people who post yard sale videos find amazing stuff. We found okay stuff at yard sales.
Okay.
Never found anything great.
It's difficult. It's putting in a lot of work to find a few great items. That's the only way I would describe it.
Now,
a flea market is a concentration of people who are all
right.
looking to sell stuff, so it's a lot more efficient.
It's less, I don't know, it sounds too good to be true, but it's like less effort and more variety. I guess the cost to that is you have to pay a little more. And that's the same with shows, right. Obviously, is the big one for me.
Shows are great. Deals are hard to find at shows because there's a lot of competition in the buying. So the dealers who show up at a show know that they're going to have an audience of dedicated customers, dedicated buyers. Everyone at the show is there to buy comics or toys. At the flea market, there may be 1,000 people shopping and only 3 people looking for comic books. So that's a better ratio as a buyer than showing up at the show. I'm going to push eBay because that's where I bought most of my collections, and I'm going to throw in Craigslist, which is difficult because, again, you're going to a marketplace of comic books where there might be 1 million listings. So it's just a greater concentration. You can thumb through thousands and thousands of listings, but my secret, of course, is my searches, my search engine. That's where you're going to find deals. You don't want to wade through 1 million, or even attempt to wade through 1 million listings on eBay.
So, and I'll just continue by saying, for me, for the collector side of me, there's no place better to go than a real life show. How can you get to a show? For anybody that's never been, just go on your computer, type in collectible shows, comic book shows, toy shows near me. I can almost guarantee you that there's something somewhere. I mean, it might be an hour drive, it might be 5 minutes from your house, you might not even know. We're in an area 10 minutes away from New York City. We have show galore. I mean, there's a show almost every weekend that we're going to start going to. Somebody asked, with our main guy Dolph not going to the flea market anymore, what are we going to do? And I said, well, that's a great point, because that is our big comic book source. But we're going to try some other things. We might not hit the local flea market every week. We're going to go from place to place. The dealing side of me, I think the flea market is the best bet. So the collector side of me, I like the shows. The dealer side of me, I like the flea markets. And I might just cross the yard sales off the list.
Right.
I just don't know if it's worth it.
I'm gonna drop one of my little secrets. So there's lots of shows in your area. Let's say, in our area, we're very lucky. We have, besides comic book shows, we have toy shows, we have record shows, we have trading card shows, we have a show that might just be antiques.
Car shows.
We have car shows. So here's how my brain works. If I go to a comic show, there's going to be lots of comic sellers and lots of comic buyers. I know the prices are going to be high and the negotiating is going to be tough. Sometimes, if there's no comic book shows in the area, I'll pick some other shows like an antique show, a record show, or a toy show, but I'm going to look for comics. Why? There's not a lot of comic buyers going to the record show or the antique show. And a lot of times I find comic books without a lot of competition. Nobody's inquired about these items, and I can make an offer. And just as an example, I was at an antique show where a fella had a large stack of comics, and he didn't really he wasn't interested in selling those comics. He was interested in selling a lot of military and other antiques. That was his pride and joy, and he knew all those items, and he had them all priced very highly for those buyers. The stack of comics, he really wasn't interested, and I made him an offer about $1 a piece, and he was more than happy to get rid of them. That was 50 or so found dollars for him. If I was at a comic show and he had comic books, I guarantee he would know the value of every one of those comics, and I wouldn't have got that deal. So sometimes you got to go cross current and find a better deal.
Guys could check out one of the videos that I posted about a month ago. I went to a trading card show and I found comic books.
There you go.
Still paid up for them, but I'm not getting that price, I think, at a comic book show. So it's stuff like that. It's finding comics at toy shows.
It's one of our little secrets that we probably shouldn't be sharing.
Finding toys at comic shows. Okay, so the fourth question, one that I've touched on a little bit in another video, I will touch on it a little bit more here, is do you have a negotiating strategy? And what is it? So I guess I'll start off just by saying, the first thing is, and it's sometimes difficult for me too, sometimes I look at stuff and I say, in my head. The first thing you got to do is ask. Somebody's selling something, somebody has something, it's not, that maybe it doesn't have a price, maybe it does have a price. You got to ask, and especially ask politely, ask like you are somewhat interested. Don't ask like you're a jerk and you don't even care what the guy says, because he'll give you a jerky response. You ask, you see what you could do, and my rule of thumb for, I'd say about 3/4 of what I do, about 75% of what I do, is I never pay the asking price. Sometimes the asking price is good, and even when it is, I always try to, can I cut a couple more dollars off, because I'm trying to resell. You know, we talked about that. We're trying to get as much as we can out of it. But even if it's a good price, even if it's a high price, ask if the guy could do a lower price. You never know what they're going to say. You never know if they might accept it. So that for me is my big rule, is never pay the asking price.
Right.
Another rule of mine would be something like, I know American Pickers kind of made this famous. Frank would go and buy a bunch of items and say, I'm the bundler. I'm the bundler. This is not a new concept, okay? Frank Fritz did not invent bundling. That's been a long-standing negotiating tactic. If a seller has one thing for $50 and he has another item for $50, put them together and say, could you do $75 for both?
Correct.
Buying in bulk will almost always be cheaper than buying individually. So those would be my 3 tips. Ask anything that you're interested in. Ask. Never pay the asking price, or at least don't just give in to the asking price. And try to bundle items. Try to buy bulk. What would you take from that?
Well, I would agree that respecting the seller is number one.
Oh, maybe by respecting the seller, maybe you start off the negotiating by saying, wow, you have some great stuff. Wow, I'd really like to have stuff like this. Or just something to say, I like what you got. something like that.
Be
It just
respectful. I don't like to show too much interest
not
in
too
the
much,
item,
not
but
too much.
you've caught me many times, getting all excited
Drooling
on an
over
item.
it. Seller's got you. When you start drooling, he's gonna just wheel
That
you
doesn't
in.
help you in negotiating, but I have a bad habit of getting overexcited when I see something really great. But I do try to be respectful to the seller because he's trying to make a living. And what helps the seller is to sell in bulk because he's found a lot of stuff. It's piling up in his warehouse, in his truck. He's hauled it to the flea market or to the show. And the ideal scenario is he can do 100 transactions of one book at a time, or he can do one transaction of 100 books. So in effect, you're really helping him, making his day more efficient by buying in volume. A big key that I would add to what Chris said, because I think a lot like Chris, you have to know your market.
Right.
Know where you want to be buying. I want to be buying in comic books. And the worst thing is to see a box of comics and not know what's in that box, not know what the value is, not know what the reselling market is going to want. If you come home with a bunch of books that you pay too much that don't resell well, you basically wasted your money. So really do your research and homework. Know the markets. Know the markets that you're going to sell into is critical. Then that helps you know how you can buy. If I know Marvel Bronze comics are getting hot based on a certain character, I'm going to look for them. So that's my thing, is also buying in bulk. I rarely buy single comics off of eBay unless I can negotiate a great deal. I'll generally buy in bulk.
And I'll be the first to admit that I've, especially caught on camera, made some overpriced purchases in things that I'm not sophistically educated in. Like I said, comics I'm new to. Trading cards I'm new to. Kind of my mindset with some things is I'll take a chance, I'll gamble, which isn't smart. That is not a smart recommended strategy, although it's okay to gamble a little bit.
It is
it's okay
part
to take a
of
risk.
the process.
But and then some things like toys, I will be a lot more firm and sturdy on my prices because I know the
that market well. You know it well.
It's weird. It's something like comic books I don't know so well, so I'm almost a little more flimsy as a buyer because I don't know. I don't want to leave it. I don't want to. I'm the first guy here. I got it. It's in my hand. But the toy market, I can just say no, no, no. This is what I have to be. This is what I want to do, and I'm more disciplined there.
But to Chris's point, one of the things I'm going to throw out there for anybody who's thinking of being a dealer, you do have to take chances. You have to take risks and gambles.
Even if it's scary.
We have a rule that when we see it, we buy it. Because if you walk away, someone else is going to buy it.
Right.
Now, my thinking is, whether it's a box of toys, a box of comics, I'd rather make a mistake and learn from it.
And lose a couple bucks.
And lose a couple of bucks. But I'd rather have the comics go through my hands, because it's only when those collections come through my hands that I find the rare comics, the key comics. I like to call them, the gold and silver nuggets in the box of dirt. I mean, a lot of stuff that you buy is not great, but you've got to go through it. You got to take a chance sometimes. You can't be reckless. So the more you know, the more knowledge you bring, you're bringing down your risks. But then you hit that gray area where you're not sure. We tend to err on the side of, let me take a chance and see how it works out. And when it doesn't work out well, it's a good learning lesson.
Right. All right. So question 5, I guess, is more for me, but since this is all your idea, I'll let you have a say also, but I'll start. How did you get into YouTube, and how can I get more people watching my content? So I've had a couple of guys actually email me, and then just people just talking through conversation. How did you get into YouTube? How can I get... Your channel has all these views and people are liking it, and some of it's a mystery to me. Some of it I don't understand, but some of it I do know what I'm doing. I know why people are gravitating towards my stuff. I get it. Because it's what I would gravitate towards too. And so let me just start by saying that one day we came home with about 300 comic books. Not a lot of great stuff, but a good stack of good stuff. My dad was telling me, you gotta do something with this collection. I mean, we don't. It's not every day we come home with 300 comics from the flea market. You got to do something. And we had toys. We had the Star Wars vehicles and stuff like that and all that. So it was a great day. It was about $200 spent on about $500 or $1,000 worth of stuff. It was just awesome. So I just went ahead. I got my phone camera, just turned it on, kind of just stood it on some boxes and held it there, and that was it. I just recorded and started talking. People liked it. I got to give a lot of credit to a YouTuber that comes to the flea market all the time, Top Shelf Kicks. Aaron, who owns his own retail store, his own shoe, clothing, and sports memorabilia store. We were selling at the flea market one day. This was about maybe 6 months ago. This guy came walking up. I had my little toy comic book section set up. Guy came up with a camera strapped to his chest and started looking at my stuff. And I was like, YouTube? Got a YouTube channel? He was like, yeah, I do. It's called Top Shelf Kicks. Started watching some of his videos. He goes to the flea market and buys. And honestly, I just thought to myself, I could do that. I mean,
That's right.
it looks like it's a lot, and it cost a lot for me to start. I mean, so
Right.
not that it necessarily had to, but I wanted to do it right.
A little investment you have to make.
So I spent money on a new laptop, $700, and then I spent another like $400 on camera, charging equipment, harnesses. So I put about $1,000 or $1,100 into it.
Right.
Part of the reason why I'm getting some success back. That's just the bottom line, is if you want to cheap out, expect to get cheaped out results.
Correct.
In a way.
You have to invest, and you have to dedicate time. Chris puts a lot of effort into it.
Right.
But I would say the key thing that I noticed, because I'm not doing it, Chris is doing it, but the videos that we watched, the YouTubers that we watched, they're doing things that they really have a passion for, that they really enjoy. So I would say, if you're doing something, and it doesn't have to be comic books or collectibles, if you're doing something in your everyday life as a hobby that you really enjoy, that would be your angle, because what people want to see is something you enjoy and you have a passion about.
Yeah, you should do it.
You should do it.
I can't tell you how many times I contemplated doing a video and never did it. Why? Because I didn't think I was going to be any good at it. I didn't think anybody was going to want to watch it. And I didn't think it was, I guess it would be embarrassing to do it in a way, if anybody's feeling anything similar to that. The best thing I did was finally turn on the camera and just say, I'm going to do it, and I don't care what anybody thinks about it.
Just do it.
As far as the attraction to the channel, because I don't know if you understand this, but this channel is growing like kind of fast. It's growing faster than most people's channels. Not that it's growing as a fast, accelerating, booming channel, but I think if you were to split the YouTube community up, this channel is kind of leaning more towards the upper end of new startups. Why? Why do I have thousands of people watching my stuff? Why do I have hundreds of likes? Why do I have people commenting and asking me questions and recommending me, I'm sure, and people telling me great things every time somebody asks or a question? They tell me, great job, love what you're doing. Part of it's a mystery. Part of it is people are just interested in the collectibles. People like to see the collectibles. I know that's why I watch a lot of stuff, is I want to see what guys are doing.
Right.
But for me personally, what I really believe is the core of it all is my standard. All right, so I watch American Pickers since I was 10 years old. I watched the first season when it came out. Loved it. I was gravitated towards this show. I watch other YouTubers, big guys with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I watch Jordan Hembrough, the Toy Hunter. I mean, show changed my world. My standard for my YouTube channel, it's not there. It's nowhere close to where I want it to be. But my standard for the YouTube channel is I want to put out the best quality content that I can make.
Right.
I'm not where I want to be. I'm not doing everything that I want. We're talking about shooting some videos at different angles, getting more people on the channel, getting some guest appearances and stuff like that, buying bigger and better stuff, going to bigger and better shows. I'm not exactly where I want it to be, but it's just going to keep growing. I know it's just going to keep growing, because as long as I keep putting in the work, I know people are just going to gravitate towards it. If I did the same thing every time, like I said, not investing a lot of time, not investing a lot of money.
You can do it quick and easy.
Quick and easy. You'll get quick and easy
you're not going to have
results.
quality.
So for me, and then some people have said that some people surprised me. They said they weren't into the flea market video. They just wanted to see the review at the end, which is shocking to me because I love the find. I love the hunt. I love watching people go out and do it. I love doing it. So I know that there's a huge portion of the audience.
It's sort of like Storage Wars.
Yeah.
I don't like the first half of the show when they're buying the units. What I like is when they start digging through and showing you what they found.
I love the first half of the show, almost more than the second half. I love the pickers walking through a guy's collection, and maybe they only buy a couple things, but I love the whole process. I love the conversation. I love the thoughts when they cut in and out and say, this is what I was thinking, this is what he did, this is the... I know that there's a huge section of my channel that loves the flea market videos, and I know there's a huge section of my channel that loves the review videos. So I'm just going to keep doing both until I find a better way to do it. I think it's the reason why the channel is growing at the rate that it is. And it's all thanks to YouTube. It's all thanks to the guys and gals that are subscribing to the channel. I'll tell you right now, if I was posting videos every day and nobody was liking it, nobody was commenting on it, would I do it strictly for the passion? I don't know. Like I said, I think my passion is getting people to come to it.
Right.
If I was, so basically, the thanks to you guys, the likes, the comments, the views, just it motivates me to pump out another video. Nothing more really to say on that. All right, we're coming near the end here. So we got 2 more questions, and these are more, once again, more personal questions. May take a little bit of thinking. But what are some of our best purchases in our collecting lifetime? I mean, obviously, finding a first appearance Juggernaut at a store back in the 90s or 80s was
for like
great.
$5 was great.
But you want to start? Go ahead.
Well, I'll say one that comes to mind was a Craigslist purchase where I happened to be home that week for vacation. So I said, yeah, I'm going to dedicate time to Craigslist. At the time, I didn't know how good Craigslist was as far as collections. So I went to the collectibles for sale, comics, search. And every morning I started scanning through, and I really didn't see much. One morning, and I'm doing this when I'm having my coffee, first thing in the morning, I start scanning through, and I would scan the page, page after page after page, and then start again, page after page, looking for new listings. A listing popped up for a collection. And I responded that I was interested in buying the collection for $300. It was far. It was about a 45-minute, hour drive. But I said, you know what? I'm home, and I'm going to take a look. Well, I drove out, and what the fella had was a giant collection of comics in his basement from, apparently his son had a comic book store way back in the 80s and 90s, closed it up, and moved away to California. And he left this massive pile of comic book boxes, long boxes, in his dad's basement. And his dad now is at the age of retirement, and he's probably going to sell the house, and he wants to clean up. And he asked me if I was interested in these 3,500 or so comics. Some were silver, bronze, mostly into the 80s and 90s, for $300. And of course, my answer was absolutely. And so I barely got everything stuffed into my minivan that was empty at the time, but I made it in one shot. That was pretty amazing. And I think because I was the first guy that called, I got the collection. And it was $300 for over 3,000 comics. So that was like 10 cents a piece.
Which is a really great deal.
It was phenomenal. And he was very happy to empty his basement. I was very happy to cart those comics away. And there was a lot of bronze and late silver into the copper era Marvel, which is what I was really looking for at the time.
I was going to ask if you remembered any specific issue, because I remember one issue that you pulled out.
Which one was that?
I remember, I don't know the exact comic, but I remember its first appearance of Poison Ivy. Batman or a detective comic, whichever one it was. I remember that was one of the things. We were up late at night and we found in the pile of modern and Bronze Age comics, there was a sliver of Silver Age, like really good DC stuff, and I remember that was in there.
Yep.
And that was pretty cool.
So that was one of the best purchases I could ever remember.
I don't want to sound too cliche with the question, but my best purchases are ahead of me. I know that for a fact. I mean, we've had some good finds. Honestly, the best find I've ever had wasn't a purchase. Um, my uncle, a family member of ours, does he buys and sells houses, and when he buys a house, he has all the contents of the house become his. And he's not a dealer, he's not a reseller of collectibles of any sort. But when he finds stuff, he'll usually give us a call and say, "Hey, you want to come check something out?" And because whatever we don't pull out, it's going in a dumpster.
That's right.
He does have a furniture lady that comes in and cleans out furniture. I don't know if she's still with him, but we got a call that he had a house, and he said that there are a lot of toys in the house. I pulled out Transformer toys in the box, originals. I pulled out and still have some original $6 Million Man toys in boxes, an Oscar Goldman, an OSI headquarters playset. I was so disappointed I didn't find vintage Star Wars, because I found vintage Star Wars packages, but no figures or play sets or anything like that. But I remember the contents of the house, and also original 70s Lego sets, all coming out of this one house, all at no cost.
Yeah,
Didn't cost us anything. Some of the stuff I still have. I believe everything that I've sold tallied out to around $2,000. I sold the Transformer toys this past Christmas.
Was there a Batmobile in there? Or am I thinking of a different collection?
That might have been the same one. That one we didn't find. He found that one.
Oh, he found it.
Pulled it out. But
and I remember him saying something like, "There might be other stuff in there if you want it. Otherwise, it's going in the dumpster."
Yeah, it was just like,
it was amazing.
I can only imagine how much stuff he has thrown out in the past that never got seen or discovered. But he's good with us. Anytime we most of the time he calls, it's usually not stuff for us. Like, it's not good stuff. But this was just a house packed with toys still in the original box.
It was amazing.
Apparently,
it was a collector. Yeah, a kid who was very careful.
So, but my best purchases are ahead of us, and they're going to be featured on this channel, hopefully, and definitely that'll be. I'm always looking for the next thing. Which gets us into the final question: what are your top 5 most desired, want list, holy grail collectibles? What would you, a rough top 5 list? What are you looking for?
It's easy for me. All the key comics that I don't have, I'd love to have in high grade. And it's probably a list a lot of other people share. I do not have a Fantastic Four number 49. I have 48 and 50. I don't have an X-Men 94 or a giant size X-Men number 1. I don't have an Amazing Spider-Man 129, and I don't have a Hulk 181. So those 5 comics, I'm still searching for even a rough copy. They're hard to find.
So that's obviously a lot of the big keys, a lot of bronze stuff. I just to throw it out there, just to twist some people, I'm not a big Hulk 181 guy. It's not the first appearance of Wolverine. True. It's the second appearance, but people that have it say it's the first appearance.
Right. Well, it's a second appearance, but it's a key appearance. It's a classic battle, Hulk and Wolverine.
To me, it's the first appearance that should matter.
For a lot of people, it does.
So that's a good list. So we share one thing in common, which is a giant size X-Men number 1. That to me is eye candy. It reminds me of the original pilot episode of the X-Men cartoon series, not the long-lasting 90s show that was really good. But if anybody remembers, I believe the pilot episode is called the Pride of Kitty or something like that, and that was one of my top cartoon episodes that I've ever watched as a kid. And that's that X-Men. That's right. That design Cyclops. That's that design Colossus and Storm and Wolverine. So that was even though I think the Wolverine outfit was a little different, but Nightcrawler, it was that group. And then the '90s show with Gambit and everybody. That's Rogue. That was later.
And they're still with us today in popular culture in the movies. So
right.
That's the group that basically is Not the original group, although
Not the original.
they're pretty cool too.
So one of the things that would be on my list if it wasn't, we didn't already have it, would be first appearance Juggernaut, because guys that follow this channel know that I'm a huge Juggernaut fan. That's a huge villain and character in my life. I mean, like you said, I think you mentioned he appeared in a cartoon first time you saw him. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends with the X-Men crossover.
Right.
Great cartoon. And who did the voice? That was
William Marshall, great voice actor. He's right up there in my book with Darth Vader's voice man, James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
So, and a great actor too.
So I just want to preface my top 5 list by, I know it's a little different than yours, because while I'm an avid collector, I have a really desired want list. I am really into the financial aspect of it, maybe more so than the intrinsic value. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you would like an X-Men #1 or an X-Men giant size #1 that you can read, kind of a beater comic, something you can flip through, something you can look at. That doesn't interest me as much as prefacing my top 5 list that everything that I would want as a top 5 would be of investment grade.
Wow.
Which for a giant size X-Men #1, that would be a 9.4 or better.
Right.
Which is, you're talking about a 5-digit comic right now. You're talking tens of thousands, possibly. In this market, at least.
Should have bought them years ago when they were cheaper. But,
I think
amazing.
giant size X-Men #1s 2 years ago were selling on average for between $300 and $500. Higher grade ones going for $1,000 to $3,000, and now a 9.4 graded would probably be a $15,000 book. I mean, I'm not paying that at this market. That's not what I want to spend.
The 2 year ago price seems like a deal now.
It does, and I hope the 2-year price from now doesn't seem like a deal, because that would suck. I don't know if it's going to. So a top 5 list would be giant size X-Men #1. My other top favorite comic book that I'd really want that we don't already have would be Amazing Spider-Man #13. I believe that issue is the first appearance Mysterio, and Mysterio being one of my favorite villains in Marvel, and the comic book cover art being one of my most favorite comic books to look at.
It's iconic.
The movie that came out was unbelievable, Spider-Man Far From Home. I thought that was the best Marvel movie that they put out. That or Infinity War. I thought it was better than Endgame. I thought it was better than the other Avenger movies. I thought it was better than the first Spider-Man. I hope the next Spider-Man's even better, because it looks really cool. But my other stuff that's non-comic related, because I do collect a wide plethora of stuff, I would love a really nice mint condition 1966 Batman lunchbox with the thermos.
Wow, good call.
That when you're talking about investment grade for that, now you're starting to talk about a smaller quantity than.
I think you have some lunch boxes, right?
I have a small lunchbox collection. It's been a while since I've bought in a lunchbox, because condition for me is a big thing, and price is just not there.
Right.
I don't know where the lunchbox market is right now. When I was in there, it was going pretty strong, and I think it's gotten even hotter. So I'm just kind of out of it right now. And then another area that I collect is Pez dispensers, and it's not the most valuable Pez dispenser, but there is no Pez dispenser that I want more than a Batman with a cape. That is like the coolest Pez dispenser. It's like Pez dispensers don't really come with accessories, but this one has the cape coming off of it. Once again, I would want a really mint condition one, a high grade one. Now, they're not too expensive, but the problem is for what I'm looking for, they don't come up too often.
Yeah,
it's not often you see that condition come up for an item like that.
Right.
Maybe around the holiday season, I might find something on eBay and check it off the list. So that's 3 things, right? That's 4 things. That was 2 comic books, the lunchbox, the Pez dispenser. The last thing I'd really want is kind of my little cult following, kind of a niche group, this is probably the single rarest thing on this list. I'd like an original box of Fruit Brute cereal. I don't know if one exists.
I know.
I've seen original boxes, like just cut out, like just the hollow box,
Right.
which would be cool enough for me. I saw one guy on eBay. I don't know if he still has it on there, but he was just selling the box kind of in like a plastic frame, in like mint pristine condition from the, I guess it's from the early '80s. He was asking $5,000 for it, which I don't think it's
Wow.
worth $5,000, but I don't think there's enough on there to set a market for. Like, I don't know what the market would be for a Fruit Brute box of cereal.
Right.
I could just reach around and grab my 2013 replica of what it would look like. Obviously, the back wouldn't look like that, but I don't know. I don't know if an original '80s box exists, unopened. Still got the original cereal in
Yeah, I
there.
don't think a lot of people were thinking of collecting cereal boxes, but the Universal Monster line of cereals was one of my favorites too as a kid. Interesting. Frankenberry, Count Chocula, Blueberry.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of missed the Mummy and the Fruit Brute. That's pretty cool that you even like that, but I know you're into werewolves, so that all makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely just a limited quantity. I mean, you can't go out and find it. I mean, and with that being said, really anything Fruit Brute advertising catches my eye.
And I
And it
noticed
just
that's hard to
doesn't come
find.
up.
Yeah,
Doesn't come
we
up.
looked a couple of places. It's hard to find.
All right, guys. So that was our top 5 lists. Those were all of our asked questions for the channel. Kind of, I got a lot of people that were asking me the same thing, so I just kind of reworded them to kind of capture everybody's questions. And a lot of guys asking some interesting questions. I like the guy that asked, what do you do full time, and would you ever do this full time? I like talking about our top 5 stuff and what we could dream for in the future, because like I said, my best purchases are ahead of me. Um, and I think overall the channel has responded great to our videos, and I hope you guys like this information. Anything you want to say to send off the video?
I hope we had some interesting answers, and hopefully we get more questions that are interesting, and hopefully we can keep doing this together because it's all about the hunt and the finds and the great items. So it's been a blast. Let's keep it going.
So with that being said, I guess we'll wait for the 1,000 subscriber Q&A, which hopefully doesn't take too long. I mean, this certainly came a lot faster than I was expecting to 500, and by the time this video's out, it'll probably be at 600. So, well, with that being said, guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video, and I guess the next time I'll see you guys, we'll come at you with some eBay purchases that we made. I know Dad's made a couple. I made a couple of purchases off camera that were not seen. So we'll get back into that later next week. And yeah, that's it. All right, guys.
Good luck.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.